I know a guy, I spoke to him last month. He's in prison. He's been accused for raping a woman at gunpoint. And I was on the phone with him. She went to go get a drink, from the hotel. She came there consensually and she went to go buy something to eat. I said, brother, I know you didn't have a gun. Because to take a gun into a hotel in itself, it's foolishness, even if you had one. But he's currently in time and it's not going to be out till next year. And I've known 2 cases like this, all falsely accused. One accused of rape by a woman. Even the police was testing his clothes. And I remember even then I had to question myself. I'm like, well, brother, try and be honest with me so I can know. Do we take a plea deal? I was like, brother, listen, I have a drinking issue, but this is not my issue. And his wife didn't believe him then. Eventually he was deemed to be innocent.
Hi guys, welcome to As a Guy. My name is Fokwe Adiola and I'll be your host this episode. Today we're going to be talking about something I call violence and false accusations. Violence and false accusations. So the way I see it is that it is 2 things in one. There's violence and then there's false accusations. Violence is the real thing. False accusations is something that is made up, basically. And before we dive right into it, I should introduce you to my guest. His name is John Chijioke Ojukwu. Welcome.
Thank you, Fokwe. Pleased to be here. Exciting.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about what is it that you do in the community and your work generally?
Yeah, thanks a lot. So my work involves different aspects. So some of it is around policy. So I work around policy, around public safety and youth violence, in terms of advising the mayor's office, as well as the chief constable around how to reduce youth violence. But also I work also with young people who are also involved in certain aspects of youth violence around changing their ways, or if I could say, getting them to try and leave that path. But also to see other opportunities in terms of economic opportunities to kind of reduce crime. But I'm also an activist, so I do campaign a lot around human rights issues, as well as kind of anti-racism work in Leeds, in the inner city, in Hare Hills mostly.
Amazing. I don't know if I've told you this, but I think your name John is like perfect because in the Bible the disciple John is like the disciple of love.
Wow.
In his book, he's always calling himself the disciple Jesus loves, the disciple Jesus loves.
Oh, wow.
And he talks about love the most, especially in like the 3 books of John after in the New Testament. Anyway, that's just something I
actually thought you meant John the Baptist. I'm like, nah, that guy's his
John
shoes are too heavy. I couldn't walk in his shoes.
No, John the Beloved.
Yes, that's
John
much better.
John the Beloved.
Yeah.
What you do is it always blows my mind. I think if Jesus was here, this is how he would live his life. John is always like with the people society kind of have forgotten, he's always taking care of them and trying to get them to live a good life. So again, thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
So I wanted us to dive right into something that I thought was very funny. I'm sure you've heard about it. So recently I heard, I don't know how true it is, but I heard that the UK police sent a notice or something to Nigerian wives to stop reporting their husbands for for violence, and that's like false accusation, so that they can get is it child support or I don't know what they get out of it. So did you hear about that?
So I read about that, which was quite interesting because I work with the London Met, and I know normally the London Met, they've been under a lot of heat. So that move for me was quite weird in that normally they wouldn't do anything near that. They would do the opposite. It is kind of encourage people to report domestic violence. But for them to have gone that far, it must have meant that actually they must have been dealing with cases that they found maybe not to be true. But it was scary. And also I was in a meeting last week. A friend of mine lost a sister,
Oh.
so we met up to have like a bit of funeral kind of wake keep in the UK context. So there were different people in there. And while I was there was a lady who was speaking about, she knows a lady who told her, well, she just got the house, she put it her husband,
Oh wow.
and she's now doing well. And so it is happening.
Yeah.
It sounds strange to think it would happen. Maybe if you're on the other side thinking, well, actually, this is not normal behavior. But there are temptations as well here.
Yeah. So why do you think a woman would actually do something like that? Like, what does she get out of it? I mean, I know you talked about the house and some benefits, but what would motivate like your wife, like somebody in a relationship, a marriage relationship, to do something like that?
I mean, I think let's begin by recognizing that domestic violence is real. Domestic violence is pervasive in all societies, I think. So I think it's a real issue when it happens, and most times it is underreported.
Yeah.
Culturally, to go to the police and speak to you about your husband rather than your in-laws, in my view. Well, I'm thinking, well, no disrespect to the police, but actually, can that be a home football situation where you deal with internally? But that being said, I think also for certain women who might be misguided in their desires, they might want something material than a man. This has been my experience. Yes, sometimes the woman might want a man and want to be in love with a man and want to serve a man, to give to a man. But sometimes the woman wants a means to material things. So the man is the means. So if you're in that position where you're looking for something, then in many ways, one could argue that you can also, in reporting your husband, that the things that he can lose things and you can gain things. I know one of the key things in the work I do, I've seen this happen many times. Divorce is high among Africans.
Definitely.
Than back home. One of the things I've heard other women discuss with me as well, the question of who gets the child benefit. Does it go to the man or does it go to the woman? And it causes a lot of problems. So I could see how material things can come in the way of wanting a real man, actually.
So basically, it's the desire of the woman to be rich, to be satisfied by material things, like you said. So there's no real love, no real desire to stay with a man and build with them, and because everything they really want can come eventually if they stay together and work together and build together. But there's that I want it right now, right?
Yeah, and also I think this is so tricky. Like I said, this is very. I see this on a day-to-day basis. I was in Roma yesterday, and she told me divorce. She mentioned the word divorce. I'm like, oh, don't say that. She's like, well, it's on the table. And I think one of the main difference I find is if a woman or a man is fully independent financially, you know who they are. This is my own theory that I don't know who a person is when he's poor or when he has need. I'm like, I know you think that's you. I said, oh, well, I've got to find out who you are when you are now independent. And I think because of one, in cases of domestic, I work around housing a lot. I can tell you, domestic violence case, you get a house in this 3-bedroom with your garden. You get your house overnight, and it's a good house. I don't mean any. So because of sometimes a woman also wants, if it's a marriage that was failing before, they actually arrived here. If it was really failing, it could be a getaway card for the woman because it means one. And let's be honest, anyone who is given a 3-bedroom house with a garden and you don't have to pay the rent, you have to ask yourself, do I really need a man? So I think sometimes there's a lot of incentive around the house and being able to have access to that. But sometimes I also feel like maybe these relationships were already on the rocks before they came through. And maybe the London Met have been overwhelmed because of the recent wave of migration. You have large numbers of people who are in the country. So imagine getting 50 calls a day and being the police. That's literally, and I know this because if I know in the Met, one of the big issues they have is time. They tell you, well, actually, we don't have time. We've got to go stabbing wounds, drugs, gangs. So to have that
Mhm.
would be a real waste of their time. But it's complex because they can't dismiss it because of it can be life threatening.
Yeah.
But I feel that maybe these are relationships that are not really stable,
Mm.
um, or were not stable before they arrived here. So these issues are now being exacerbated because, and let's be honest, if someone give you £2,000 a month, I think I might change. I think I'm like, listen, I might change. I might
Yeah,
change a
yeah,
bit. So it's a lot of money.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. So we're going to get to violence
Okay.
very soon, but I want us to just get false accusations out of the way. So I imagine, let's say I'm married, and then one afternoon my wife calls with the police, and they're like, your wife reported you or something, and you're going to jail. If I'm in that position, how do I handle that as a man, as a guy? What should be my reaction? How should I go about it?
It's difficult. I think I can speak personally. Been falsely accused of a few around this, but it's difficult. I think the more innocent you are, the more angry you might become.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, if you've done it, they're like, well, actually, or if you're near that, but it's difficult. I think it's almost a test
Mm.
of faith. And when I mean faith, I mean faith in God to
Mhm.
vindicate you. Because not the society, not even your close friends might actually turn on you.
Mhm.
I mean, I've been lied against. I actually knew someone who was lied against. God-fearing man, no issue. Vulnerable man, actually. A mentor of mine, and it was accused. And I remember going to speak to his wife about it and speak to him, and it showed me how vulnerable men are. Like,
Mhm.
and any man is vulnerable to a false accusation. It doesn't matter how godly you are. I've got to be honest. You can be the most godless man, and that still becomes a smear.
Mhm.
So I think for me, it's a test of faith. And I would say the key thing is to try and acknowledge your anger, and express your anger in a way that is godly.
Mhm.
Because if you suppress your anger, I think it can implode. But you have to either in a place of prayer, which is why I love the Psalms a lot, because the Psalms is often dealing with false accusations. Psalm 144, people who are lying against the psalmist, but
Yeah.
he's angry. So he's not smiling. He's really angry.
Yeah.
He's not swearing. Thank God.
But
So
it
we
says
can read.
God should smite them.
Yeah,
And all
yeah. I
this.
think maybe swear might be better than smite your enemies. I think,
Yeah.
but there's a sense in which I feel the anger is justified.
Mhm.
So as a man, if you find yourself in that position, and I come at this historically myself, given my line of work, and the history of lynching. Lynching is a very particular crime where a black man is hung on a tree publicly,
Mhm.
and largely it was over rape. So the lynching tree is actually signifies a life. Whenever I see a lynching tree, I'm like, well, it's actually a lie I'm seeing, not someone hanging.
Yeah.
Because you got a lot of people lynched, but it's difficult as a man. I know a guy, I spoke to him last month. He's in prison. He's been accused for raping a woman at gunpoint.
Wow.
And I was on the phone with him. He was like, listen, she went to go get a drink, from the prison. So from the hotel. She came there consensually, and she went to go buy something to eat. If I had the gun, I said, brother, I know you didn't have a gun. Because to take a gun into a hotel in itself,
Yeah.
it's foolishness, even if you had one.
Mm.
But he's currently in time, and it's not going to be out till next year.
Mm.
And I've known 2 cases like this, all falsely accused. One accused of rape by a woman. Even the police was testing took out his clothes. And I remember even then I had to question myself. I'm like, well, brother, try and be honest with me so I can know. Do we take a plea deal? I was like, brother, listen, I drink. I have a drinking issue, but this is not my issue.
Mhm.
And his wife didn't believe him then.
Mhm.
Eventually, he was deemed to be innocent. So it's very.
Oh, sorry. He was married and then he was going out with somebody else.
No, he was married and he went out to drink with someone, and she accused him of rape. It was a public
Okay.
space. It's it's a pain that I could not imagine. The weight of your innocence will crush. That's right. What will crush is the innocence.
Yeah.
It's not the accusation. It's that you knowing that you wouldn't be believed.
Mm.
But I would say in many ways, as a man, you have to find a godly way to be angry, rather than to suppress the anger. You have to also learn to forgive, because often it could mean that you close your heart not only to that woman but to other women,
Yeah.
because they can easily do that.
Mm.
So it's a way of almost, it can scar you for life. I mean, I thank God Joseph in the Bible was able to come out, and we don't know the impact of spending time in prison for what he didn't do.
Yeah.
But we know he still has a family and he still remarries. But that could be, he can see women differently.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I was saying, man, you've got to be angry and deal with your anger in a godly way. Do not respond in any way that would suggest that you did what they're accused of. That's a danger. If you can, if it's a legal matter, pursue a lawyer. Do not go based on, no, just because you.
Just believe me.
I mean, I've known this time 2 years ago, there was a young man who I know, he spent time inside.
Mm-hmm.
Again, 6 months, he didn't do anything.
Wow.
She wanted to move house. There's a white lady, she accused him of rape. And no CCTV, no nothing. He still spent time inside, 6 months. In the end, she kind of retracted her conversation, and she got a house, moved out of the street, and he's been inside of prison. So it's painful. It's painful.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you brought that story up, because my next question was about like actually real accusations with maybe young people that are dating. So say two people are dating, go on a date, and then they get drunk, just like you said, and the lady accuses the guy of doing something wrong. I've heard of cases where, well, on social media, people are usually like, well, why did you go? They blame the lady, right? And say, why did
Yeah.
you go there in the first place? And usually, especially in Nigeria, it's just the lady's fault. Sometimes the guy actually did do it. So in this situation, do you actually, let me put it like this: do you think the society, the system is already biased in such a way that they would always believe the lady?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak as an African man who is black in the UK. The system is designed to hang you in the context of gender-based violence, because certain assumptions about us as a people being aggressive, certain assumptions are about we as a people, our conduct, even things that could be boisterous and loud, that could become threatening behavior. You could be 6'3" in a bus, and someone would move because of just physically the way you're built. You could be seen as loud, and that could be seen as threatening. So there's a lot of things about our physical appearance that is misconstrued in relation to aggression. But if, in my view, the man is always responsible for himself. I said, man, I'm responsible for myself. In a context where people are dating, I think it could be more tricky, in that if people are dating and already they are crossing certain boundaries around physical touch, a man can be set up to a man can be set up to want more, and now deny that which he's been set up for. Which means, that's why I go back to say, it's complex. It's wrong, but what is wrong is actually the crossing of the boundary.
Yeah.
Forcefully or in a ways, but the fact that you're thinking, well, actually, listen, the whole situation is messy.
Yeah.
So I say that to say that there's certain environments for me I can tell you a true story. I was an evening, there's a lady who was homeless. So she rings the church, and Abby calls me and says, oh, John, go see her and see how she's doing. And eventually I go take some food with her, with a few people. She's in a hotel, and I'm going to a hotel to see someone who is homeless. I'm aware of the perception of, I'm watching myself because I know already, again, she's white. I'm thinking, oh, this is too dangerous for me. But I go to see her at the hotel, take some food with a few people. Then eventually she goes missing. I wander around Leeds and actually find her by God's grace. and I take her to the hospital, to A&E,
Okay.
and I beg, can they give her a bed for the night? And they says, well, we can do that, but just give us some time. Then I thought to myself, to cover my back, let me call the council.
Okay.
So I called the council. There's a lady here. I think she's known to them for different kind of, she's on drugs as well. And I give her the phone, and they're speaking to her. They're like, well, who's that man? Is he safe? And they begin to assume that actually I might want to take advantage of her. And the nurses are so disgusted. They're like, that's just disgusting. And they begin to say, oh, this is so wrong. And in the end, they let her stay in the hospital. But it now also dawned on me that before I left, one of my brothers in the Lord told me, listen, John, go and do that one by yourself. I told him, come to me, no, I'm not doing that with you. Just go home, leave her to sleep on the streets. I could see now what he meant was actually, I don't want to be in that position where actually I'm trying to get someone homeless in place, but I'm being accused of rape. So I would say in a relationship, the difference is if people cross certain physical boundaries, there's more room for force and domestic violence, sexual violence in a relationship more than because if you're crossing those boundaries. And if that happens, it should be condemned. But I think what should be understood is that actually that the boundaries that both sides are crossing, for the guys, in the context of the nightlife scene, I mean, I worked at the student union for 3 years, Leeds University Union. I worked there I loved it. I love the student life. I understand the student rhythm, but the certain kinds of behaviors that are pre-planned. I can speak of maybe not the Nigerian context. I didn't study in Nigeria, but I know if you're going out for a night out in the UK, you know what you mean. You know you're gonna get. You say you're gonna get smashed. you know what smash means. There's no holy water you're going to drink. I mean, that's from my perspective at least.
Yeah.
So I think there's some times in which people are preparing to be in a situation that would endanger them and others. And when they now find themselves in that situation, they are judging the behaviors of the people involved in that situation as being premeditated in a particular sense. Whereas that situation, it creates I know the amount of drugs that are used in student parties, for example. If you put yourself in that position where men are drunk, women are drunk, you can't justify either parties. But there's some things that are likely to happen. That they're very much likely to happen because of the environment. It's like the club setting, like the lights are low, people are in toilets doing drugs. So
it's crazy.
So it can be one in which you've put yourself in an environment. Now, you're right, in the Nigerian context, they'll blame the girls. What are you doing there? You're wearing short skirts. But I think it's wrong to blame just the female. You should blame the guys who are in that position, because every man is responsible for himself. And it's more around, if you know you're going to that environment, can you go with a friend? Can you decide, well, actually, I'm just going to have 2 drinks rather than I'm going to go there and get smashed? Then because if you've taken all the steps, then you can now say, actually, I'm innocent.
Thank you for that. I think that leads us to actual violence now. So what do you think? Obviously, you've talked about being under the influence of drugs and alcohol and all that, but is there something deeper that can make a man actually violent? Like, what could be the source of, where does that come from, do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, so for me, violence is, I do have a bit of a different way of seeing violence.
Okay.
So in that, the Bible says that the heart is desperately wicked.
Yeah,
I remember my pastor who always said, actually, it means that we're desperate. We want to actually do what is wrong. It's not like God, give me a chance, let me just harm someone. Which is, one might say, well, that's a poor origin of human nature. I'm good. But I do believe that there's something about desire, that violence is about desire for me. It's about, if I want what doesn't belong to me, that is violence. If I want now I can appreciate what you have, but if I say, well, actually, you're in the car, and I'm like, I want that car, rather than seeing you in the car, that for me is what violence is.
Mm.
And as I began by speaking about the Nigerian case of the women, there's something about desire. Like, what do you want material things? Do you want the man? So I can see, for me, there's a lot of violence that comes from a man wanting to be in control, um, a man wanting to control the world, the situation, the surrounding. I feel like that could lead men to become more defensive, more prone to that kind of violence. I think insecurity for me is a big one. I mean, I went to boarding school. I went to military school for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Bullied deeply. I mean, when I mean bullied badly, bad. I mean, I began to heal actually in England for me.
Wow.
A lot of between 98 and 2002. I mean, that one, I mean, it's a military school, so it's you expect certain levels of violence. But
I didn't know that. I was actually in boarding house too, but not
yeah,
military.
no, I was in Nigerian Navy,
wow.
5 years. I mean, deep. I mean, I was deeply. I have no doubt that without Jesus Christ, I wouldn't say all that I am today. I can say confidently that without the Lord, I have no reason being this way, because I've seen too much of I've seen the brutalities. I've had someone. I used to have a guy who would shock me. He would put me in a bunk that was connect me to electric, and I hold the bunk just for pleasure. Nothing, just for pleasure. Nothing to do with any. Just it pleased him to see someone being humiliated, which also taught me a lot about kind of the military. And if you're in a military environment, a soldier is actually in the mind, the way you think about power. And without the uniform, a soldier is important. Like you need to have power to give orders.
Yeah.
And that's why if you question an order in the military, you're seen as, listen, how can you question what I asked you to do? So I feel like there's something around violence and desire, in that both men and women have certain desires that for me are violent. That you want what is not yours, you want what you cannot handle, you want what belongs to someone else. But also I was saying insecurities for me is a huge barrier, being fear. Now, because if I went through in my own personal journey at boarding school, I was taught to fear people. So the whole idea of the terror is so you can actually fear. Fear. Now we see this guy like, you run away. Like he would terrorize. I mean, trust me, Bin Laden wasn't the only terrorist, there were real terrorists on the ground. So I think there's something about fear. And in a relationship, if a man is afraid of losing a woman, I think he's likely to be violent. If a man is afraid that he might not control a woman, he's likely to be violent. I feel like fear shapes some of the violence. And also I think pressure. Men are under a lot of pressure. And a lot of it is not God-given, I found. It's expectation.
Yeah.
It's not, there's some pressure. I'll say, yes, it is God-given. It is God's given responsibility but not to read your woman's mind. I couldn't read your mind. I'm like, no. I can't read your mind.
Never.
I can try, but I need prayers and the Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of pressure on men to be more than God has made them to be. And I think that pressure could mean that a lot of men look down because of shame, which means they feel like they've not accomplished, they have not made it. And that shame for me is terror, in that it doesn't go away. Then whoever is closest to you gets to experience that shame, which means you might lash out. And I think it's getting worse. Now, I understand the Me Too movement. I'm an activist, so I understand where women's rights matter. I understand how they matter. But there's also a sense in which, again, I can speak as a male, African male of Black heritage. I used to go for the feminist meetings at university in Beckett. For a year, I wouldn't say, I would attend, I wouldn't speak. I would observe to stand in solidarity with the women's movement, until I actually understood, well, there is, there's a certain pleasure derived from men being humiliated in society.
Definitely.
And that means that either some men will not open up as much, but even if they did open up, how harshly would they be judged?
Exactly.
So it means that all of this burden could mean that a man can find himself trying to meet those expectations, exceed those expectations, and still be himself,
Mm-hmm.
which is the pressure is too much. That being said, some violence is linked to substance abuse,
Mm-hmm.
which means a man has a problem with alcohol and he's drinking, or he's using drugs, or so substance abuse for me is a huge issue as well.
You've mentioned like a few things now, like insecurity, the terror, the pressure of wanting to accomplish things and prove yourself to a woman or to society, and all that. So, what would you say is the solution to this problem? Like, how do I, if I had these issues, how do I begin to unlearn
Yeah.
this habits or tendencies? How do I start to heal from all this
Yeah.
problems?
Yes, I think for me, this is where we have to look at our Lord. We have to look at Christ. Um, the Bible says in Isaiah that they found nothing desirable in him.
Mm,
Also, they found nothing beautiful in him that they should desire him.
mm,
Isaiah 53. I've always found that interesting. Like, wasn't Christ desirable? I'm thinking, well, I do I really want to, like, you want to be desirable, you want to be the guy. I'm thinking, for them to write that about you, we found no beauty in them. I'm like, listen, but I think that's the answer in that wanting to be like Christ, not to be cool in a way that the world sees desirable.
yeah.
Because the beauty I find with Christ is he knew he had the Father who loved him unconditionally.
Mm,
Um, Whereas I feel like men, we always negotiating our love. Like, okay, I do this for you. Okay, I buy your car, I cook for you, then you give me love. It was okay. I
mm,
have a good, they always negotiate. I'm in a place in my life where I almost question the ability of women to love men unconditionally. I think it's rare
mm,
because you have to prove something that you get that love. But I think we need to look at Christ in that Christ is a son permanently
mm,
of his father, which means we have to be sons as men, not to be exclusive with that term. I know there's sons and daughters, but I feel like as
yeah.
men, you have to know I have a father who
Who
loves
loves
me
me?
unconditionally. I
Mm,
don't have to buy a car for God to love me.
mm.
I don't have to own a house or build a house in my nowadays you have to build a house in your village. I'm thinking this just to show that you've arrived.
Yeah.
Christ loves you even if you don't build a house in the village. Then I think too, you now have to also unlearn shame
Mm,
by dealing with your guilt, where you make mistakes, be accountable, confess to someone. It's hard, it's difficult, it's very hard, but I think a lot of unconfessed
yeah.
burdens
Mistakes.
just
Yeah.
leads things to build up, and also try and be easy on yourself as well because you're not Superman. You're
Yeah.
not. You're just one man. There are many men, even better.
Yeah.
And also pray. I think dealing with the workplace is
Mm,
really important in that you have to both aspire to do well, but be very careful. I mean, if I had a son, I would love him to not value money. I would love him to not value the things that I'm like, son, that's meaningless for me. Tell the truth, love your enemies, love the poor, love yourself. Don't put yourself under too much pressure to say, I've made my first million. I'm like, so I feel like men have to be so careful because even if you worked so hard to acquire, Jesus said, what does it profit a man
mm.
to gain all of that
And
and not
lose your
lose his
soul.
soul, which means you can gain a lot of things, but don't lose your son. There's a
Essentially.
father who provides for you. You don't
Yeah.
provide for yourself.
Yeah. 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 I think that's beautiful. I mean, personally, I just turned 28 in August, and
Wow.
I moved to the UK 2 years ago. And initially, I was excited. First time out of the country, well, second time out of the country, first time out of the continent. And, all of that was exciting. But then the reality of, well, I have bills to pay. I have to
Yes.
pay rent. I have to buy food, buy clothes. Um, I don't know if I shared this in church or something, but I didn't have like a winter jacket for like a whole year.
Wow.
I was wearing a sweater that somebody gave me in Nigeria. all of that happened, and obviously, like you said, that insecurity, that judgment of like I've made a mistake, like I can't make it here in the UK, and all of that started to come in. But it wasn't until I started to like take intentional steps to affirm myself and obviously recognize that God loves me unconditionally. One thing I did was to go on YouTube and download as many messages on God's grace as possible
Wow. Wow.
and just listen and just let that sink in that, I am loved, I am favored, I am blessed. And all this around me right now is just, it's just circumstance. That's not who I am.
Yeah.
And funny enough, when that started to sink in was when things started to change for me. Started
Yeah.
to I moved to Leeds, got a new job.
Yeah.
Things just started to turn around for me, and I think that's the solution, like you said, for most men out there. Just recognize that you are loved, and
Yeah.
from there will flow everything that you actually desire in the world. One last thing. This is a men's podcast, obviously, but
Okay.
let's just say something for the women. So if you're a woman and you're actually living with somebody that is violent, verbally or physically, what's that one statement you'd give them?
So I've seen miracles.
Hmm.
Now I don't want to justify, but I've seen people transformed by the grace of God. I've seen marriages remain because of the grace of God. So I think if it's a man who is physically harming you, you need to consider temporal separation. Think about your own safety. And I'm not saying divorce, I'm just using the word temporal separation. So you've got to be very honest with yourself, and that marks in your body is not why Jesus died for you. He took those marks on his own body.
Mhm.
So I would say you can love a man well from a distance. I can be fasting for you. I'm praying for you. Yeah, but if you want to swing, I'm nowhere around you. So if you're in a situation with a man who is violent physically, it's a red flag. I would say report that to your in-laws if you're African in that sense,
Yeah.
or your pastor, but be very open to the idea of actually counseling, all of that. Whereas if you're in a relationship with a man who struggles with his temper, once in a while he raises his voice, he might or not speak to you, which is another form of violence. I think more deadly, I would argue, is when he just doesn't speak to you. It's like this man, it's a form of coercive control, but you can pray into that situation. If you can try and reduce the pressure on him and reduce the pressure in the house, which could mean you can decide, well, let's just go out somewhere different environment, have a good meal. Don't worry about the things that he needs to do in terms of provide. Have you done this?
Yeah.
Find out how are you doing, and be patient. And the reason I'm saying patient is if you, as a woman, trust God for a man's redemption and you're praying for him, so prayer, correction, accountability. You pray for him, you correct him, then you report him. But for the first one, I would say if it's physically, I would consider one temporal separation and the safety of my. Now, if you're a woman with kids as well, it's never good for children to witness their mothers being physically abused. So you've got to make some these are hard. I'm not saying it's lightly, but you have to think about your one. He can kill you. It has to be a possibility in your mind. You can lose your life. Not to scare you, but prayer also matters. But for me, correction also is men need to be corrected when they're wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Thank you very much for coming to
pleasure. It's excited.
Yeah. Thank you very
Wonderful.
much. So, guys, there are more episodes on
Watch the space.
vulnerability. I think you mentioned vulnerability this episode. So we're going to talk about several issues that concern guys. So catch you on the next one.